We used to talk about the dead internet theory as this weird niche conspiracy, the idea that eventually the web would just be bots talking to bots. Well, it's 2026, and if you spend 5 minutes on any social feed, you know it's not a theory anymore. Over half of the traffic on the internet is now bot generated, and our visual culture has followed that same path. We're surrounded by what everyone is calling AI slop. It's that specific look of images that seem okay for a split second, but the longer you look, the more you realize there's no logic or intention behind them. I've seen this transition from the inside while working on brands like Amazon, Bally Sports, Marvel, and Pokemon. We've hit this point of peak generic. Whether it's a movie poster, a mobile game ad, or a corporate rebrand, it's all starting to feel like it came from the exact same source. It's colorful and polished, but it's completely forgettable. It's like eating high fructose corn syrup. You get a quick hit of something sweet, but you're left feeling empty because there's no substance to it. This is what people are actually feeling when they talk about aesthetic exhaustion. You're not just tired of your screen, you're tired of the lack of effort. When I'm scrolling, I can almost smell the prompt used to make the slop I'm looking at. It's uncanny, it's weirdly smooth, and it usually has those bizarre logic errors like 6 fingers or shadows that go in 3 different directions. The biggest lie we're being told right now is that perfection is what people want. In reality, the more perfect and polished the AI gets, the more people are starting to crave things that look like a human actually touched them. You have to realize that the slop happens because algorithms are designed to find the average. When you train a model on everything that exists, the output is always going to be the middle of the road. It's a total flattening of culture. If your work looks like a prompt, you've already lost, because a machine will always be faster at being average than you are. The only way to stay high value in this environment is to lean into the things that the machine can't do. The mistakes, the weird choices, and the grit. Back in February, Google dropped a core update that actually addressed this. They started focusing on a metric called information gain. In plain English, if your work doesn't add something new to the conversation, if it's just a remix of stuff that's already out there, it gets buried. This is a massive problem for pixel pushers who just make things look standard. If your whole job is to just make clean design, you're basically a high-paid human version of an AI. I ran into this constantly when I worked for game studios. When you're building out a new character or a specific world, the standard look is the absolute enemy. If it looks like something people have seen before, it's a failure. AI is inherently backward looking. It can only show you a version of the past. It doesn't understand why a specific color or texture matters. It doesn't know that a rough, hand-drawn edge might represent a character's mental state, or that a specific font choice is a callback to a 1940s propaganda poster. It just sees patterns. This is why information gain is your biggest advantage. You have access to context that the machine hasn't been trained on because that context lives in your own head and your own life experiences. If you want to fix your work, you have to stop looking at the same 5 inspiration sites that everyone else is using. If you're pulling from the same pool as the AI, you're going to produce the same slop. You need to start injecting your own proprietary data, the weird books you read, the places you've traveled, and the specific ways you failed in the past. The goal isn't to be better at producing assets. The goal is to be better at providing a perspective. I see so many designers right now who are terrified of AI, but they're still trying to compete with it on its own terms. They're trying to be faster and cleaner, and that's a losing battle. The machine wins on speed every single time, but the machine can't provide a new point of view. It can't innovate because it doesn't have a soul to pull from. You do. We've lived through about a decade of blending, and trust me, you know the look. Every tech company used the same sans serif font, the same flat illustrations, and that same friendly corporate blue. It was all designed for mobile-friendly readability, but it turned the world into a hospital waiting room. Now people are finally over it. We're seeing a massive swing back toward what people are calling the return of the ornament. People are searching for human design because they're sick of corporate minimalism. We're seeing a spike in styles like maximalism and neo-folk, things that are intentionally messy and detailed. Brands like Liquid Death or Mischief showed the industry that you don't have to be clean to be huge. You just have to be distinct. Minimalism used to be a way to stand out from the clutter, but now clean is the clutter. It's so common that your brain just filters it out as white noise. When I look at the work I've done as an art director, the pivot is always toward high friction design. That means textures you can almost feel and layouts that don't perfectly align with a grid. We're moving away from the era of don't make me think and into an era where we actually want to feel something when we look at a brand. The mobile game aesthetic is really just the final ugly stage of minimalist decay. It's a result of trying to make everything as clickable as possible without caring if it's actually good. If you want to stay ahead of this, you have to embrace the mess. Stop trying to align everything perfectly. Start looking for ways to add character back into your typography and your layouts. Minimalism was a great tool for a while, but it's become a cage for a lot of designers. The people who are winning right now are the ones who aren't afraid to be a little bit weird and a lot more human. There's a specific reason why film cameras and vinyl records are still booming in 2026. It's digital burnout. We spend so much time in these perfect digital environments that we're starting to find them repulsive. In the design world, going analog has become the ultimate status symbol. If you can show that your work started on a physical desk, you're suddenly seen as more authentic. I'm seeing this at the highest levels, including at companies like Nintendo and Disney. The best designers are going back to the basics: actual paint, risograph printers, and scanning in real-world textures. They aren't doing this because they have to, they're doing it because an AI can't replicate happy accidents, can't replicate the way ink actually bleeds into paper, or the weird glitch you get when you move a page while it's being scanned. It sounds backwards, but the most high-tech thing you can do right now is actually use your hands. While everyone else is fighting over who has the best prompt, the elite designers are back to using pencil and paint. If your work never leaves the screen, it's just data. But if it starts on a desk, it's art. People can tell the difference. They can feel the human friction in a scanned-in texture that they just don't feel in a generated one. I found that the best way to de-digitize your work is to incorporate physical steps into your process. Even if the final product is a digital file, the inputs should be analog. Take a photo of a real texture. Hand draw your initial sketches. This adds a layer of human noise to the work that makes it stand out from the AI slop. It makes the work feels like it has a soul, which is exactly what your audience is looking for right now. When I was working on Pokemon Go, Marvel Snap, and other mobile games, the biggest challenge wasn't just making things look cool, it was making them feel like they actually existed in space. In mobile games, there's this constant pull toward that slop aesthetic. Everything is glowing, buttons feel floaty, and it all feels like thin plastic. But the work that actually sticks with people is the work that has visual friction. For Marvel Snap, every card and UI element needed to feel like it had physical weight. We weren't just making images, we were trying to create a sense of digital physicality. AI slop fails because it doesn't understand gravity. It gives you a character with a glossy finish, but there's no narrative logic to it. When I was leading teams, we'd spend days asking why a specific texture was there. If a character is a warrior, how would the light catch the scuff marks on their armor? AI doesn't know why metal is rusted, it just knows rust is a texture it can slap on. But you know that the rust on his shield tells a story about a war that the character barely survived. This is your biggest advantage as a human designer. You are a context architect. You're the one who connects the dots between history and psychology. The machine can give you a superhero, but it'll just be a guy in spandex. It won't know why that spandex is torn in a specific way, or why his symbol is a 300-year-old family crest. If you can't explain the history of a texture or the logic of a shadow in your work, then you're just decorating. High-value design is about making choices that have a reason behind them. So stop letting the machine guess the story for you. You should be the one building worlds that have a past, not just a prompt. This is how you stay relevant when everyone else is hitting generate and hoping for the best. If you can't justify why a pixel is where it is, you're just making slop. But if every choice you make is backed by a narrative, you're making something that people will actually care about. Leading the national rebrand for a major sports network was a massive lesson in fighting design fatigue. When you're dealing with thousands of assets across 19 different regions, it's very easy to just automate everything into oblivion. You can end up with this corporate slop look, safe, sterile, and totally forgettable. My goal was to make sure that even at scale, the brand still felt like it had a soul. This is where you have to shift your mindset from being a maker to being a director. Today, your value isn't just in your ability to push pixels, it's your taste. Anyone can generate 1,000 sports logos in a minute, but they won't know which one actually captures the energy of a game-winning shot. Your taste is actually your most important technical skill now. Since everyone has an AI that can paint a masterpiece in 5 seconds, the only thing that matters is, do you know which one to pick? The skill of design has moved from execution to selection. You're essentially a filter now, and if you can't tell the difference between polished garbage and human genius, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. You shouldn't just be training your hands, you should be training your eyes. To do this, you have to look outside the digital bubble. I looked at vintage almanacs and even mid-century industrial design for inspiration. These are off-model influences that the AI hasn't been trained on yet. By pulling from sources that are outside of the common crawl, you ensure that your work has a look that the machine can't easily replicate. You're providing that information gain that makes your work valuable. We've all seen that weirdly saturated, overly beveled look that's taken over everything from app icons to movie trailers. It's the mobile game aesthetic, and it's basically just designed for short-term retention. It's meant to grab your eye for a half second so you click, but it has no staying power. It feels cheap because it's trying way too hard. To fix this, we need to move towards haptic design. We need to make things feel like they have weight and actual physics. We need to move away from the glow and back to the material. Use shadows that actually follow the laws of physics. Use textures that make people want to reach out and touch the screen. We also need to learn how to desaturate our intent. And I'm not just talking about the colors, I'm talking about how much we're trying to force the viewer to look. There's a lot of power in slow design, making things a little bit harder to consume so that the connection actually lasts. This is how you win the war against the slop, by being the quiet room in a world of digital screaming. Stop designing for the click and start designing for the connection. When you focus on the materiality of your work, you're creating something that feels real in a world that's becoming increasingly synthetic. This is what people are searching for when they look for human design. They want to feel like something was made by a person who understands how the physical world works. If you can bring that sense of touch back to the screen, you're doing something that the AI, by its very nature, cannot understand. The exhaustion we're all feeling right now isn't a dead end, it's actually a reset. We're at the end of a long cycle of digital optimization, and we're entering a new era of human restoration. After 15 years in the trenches, I can tell you that the designers who are going to survive the next 5 years aren't the ones who are the fastest with their tools. They're the ones who are the most human with their vision. Your new contract as a designer isn't just to produce assets. If that's all you're doing, you're competing with a machine that doesn't sleep and doesn't get tired, so good luck. No, your real job now is to protect meaning. In a world of infinite, meaningless slop, the person who can find the why behind a project is the most valuable person in the room. Whether you're working on a massive franchise or a local rebrand, your job is to find the soul of that thing and put it on the screen. I've lived this firsthand. I've sat through hundreds of project briefings where all we talk about is the why going into the campaign or project. The AI isn't coming for your job, so don't worry about that. It's coming for the boring parts of your job where you acted like a machine. But the vision, the taste, and the context, that's all still yours. Stop trying to compete on speed. You will lose that race every single time. Start competing on humanity. Use the AI as your brush if you want, but never let it be the painter. The human is finally back in style, and it's the only thing that people are actually willing to pay for. If you've enjoyed hearing my thoughts today, hit that like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more videos coming up. I also want to hear your thoughts. What do you think about all this AI in design? Do you like it, or do you think it's slop? Let's talk down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you in the next one.